There are some things a mother carries in her heart long after her son has grown old enough to carry his own burdens. I have carried many things for my son over the years. His first smile, his first fever, his first day of school, the little questions he used to ask me before he understood how complicated the world could be. But there is one thing I have carried more carefully than all the rest. It is the sound of his heart breaking. I have heard it without always hearing a sound. I have seen it in the way he became quieter after loving someone. I have noticed it in the way his eyes changed when he tried to convince me that he was fine. I have watched him smile at the dinner table while something inside him was clearly somewhere else. And every time, a part of me wanted to reach across the years and protect the little boy I once held in my arms. That is why, if the woman he loves could hear me today, I would not speak to her with anger. I would not accuse her. I would not demand anything from her. I would simply look into her eyes and say, "Please don't break my son's heart again." I am not asking you to promise that you will never make a mistake. I know better than anyone that love is made of imperfect people. I have made mistakes. My son has made mistakes. You will make mistakes too. That is what it means to be human. But there is a difference between making a mistake and deliberately hurting someone who trusted you with the most fragile parts of himself. My son has never been careless with love. That is what I want you to understand. When he loves, he does not stand at the edge with one foot ready to leave. He steps forward. He listens. He gives. He remembers the little things. He notices when someone is tired, even when they say they are not. He notices when someone is pretending to smile. He remembers the stories people tell him, even the ones they assume he has forgotten. I watched him learn that kindness as a child. I remember one rainy afternoon when he was still very young. He came home with his shoes soaked through and his hair dripping onto his forehead. I was expecting him to complain about the weather, but instead he walked into the kitchen, carrying something carefully beneath his jacket. I asked him what he was hiding. He opened his jacket and showed me a small, injured bird. He looked at me with those serious little eyes and said, "Mom, I couldn't leave him there." I remember kneeling beside him. "Where did you find him?" "Near the road." "And what are we going to do?" He looked almost offended by the question. "We're going to help him." That was my son. Even before he understood romance, he understood tenderness. Years later, when he began falling in love, that same tenderness followed him. He did not suddenly become someone different. He simply found another place to put all the love he had been carrying inside him. And perhaps that is why heartbreak was never a small thing for him. Some people can walk away from a relationship and close the door behind them as though nothing happened. My son never learned how to do that. When someone became important to him, she remained important even after the relationship changed. He did not erase memories simply because they hurt. He did not turn love into hatred just because love had ended. Sometimes I wished he could. I remember one night when he came home later than usual. The house was quiet. I was sitting in the living room when I heard the door open. He walked in. I looked at him. He looked at me. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then I asked, "Are you all right?" He gave me that familiar smile, the one people use when they don't want anyone to worry. "I'm fine, Mum." I knew he wasn't. A mother learns the difference between her son's real smile and the smile he gives the world. I waited. Eventually, he sat beside me. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Then he whispered, "I thought this time would be different." My heart sank. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. I placed my hand over his. After a long silence, he said, "Maybe I wasn't enough." That sentence has stayed with me. Because I wanted to shake him. I wanted to tell him that love should never make a good person question his worth. Instead, I squeezed his hand and said, "My son, someone failing to recognize your heart does not make your heart less valuable." He looked at me. I continued, "You cannot measure your worth by the person who chose not to protect it." His eyes filled with tears. And that was the moment I understood something. My son did not need me to tell him that the woman was wrong. He needed me to remind him that he was still himself, still worthy, still capable of loving, still capable of being loved. Healing did not happen overnight. I wish I could tell you it did. I wish I could tell every mother that heartbreak is a wound that closes quickly if you simply give it enough time. But some wounds are invisible, and invisible wounds can take longer. There were mornings when he seemed completely fine. There were evenings when he became distant. There were songs he stopped listening to, places he avoided, memories he did not talk about. And sometimes, in the middle of an ordinary conversation, I could see something pass through his eyes, a memory returning without permission. I never forced him to talk. I simply stayed. That is one thing I have learned about motherhood. Sometimes love does not mean finding the perfect words. Sometimes love means sitting beside someone in silence until they are ready to speak. So I sat beside my son. I drank coffee with him. I listened to stories that had nothing to do with heartbreak. I laughed when he made jokes. I let him pretend he wasn't hurting until the day he no longer had to pretend. And slowly, something changed. He began to understand that healing was not about forgetting her. It was about remembering himself. He began taking long walks again. He began laughing more freely. He began making plans. He began looking toward the future without constantly turning around to see what he had lost. One evening, he came into the kitchen while I was preparing dinner. He stood there quietly for a moment. Then he said, "Mum." I turned around. "Yes?" "I think I'm okay." I smiled. "You sound surprised." He laughed softly. "I think I forgot what okay felt like." I walked toward him and touched his cheek. "You didn't lose yourself, sweetheart. You were simply trying to find your way back." He looked down. Then he said something that I will never forget. "I still believe in love." I smiled through my tears. "I know you do." "But I'm afraid," I answered honestly. "Being afraid doesn't mean you shouldn't love again. It means you understand what love costs." He looked at me. I said, "Just don't give your whole heart to someone who treats it like something replaceable." Perhaps that is the lesson I would give the woman standing beside my son today. Please understand what you have been given. You have not been given a perfect man. I never promised you perfection. You have been given a human being, a man with scars, a man with fears, a man who has learned to hide his pain because he does not want to burden other people. A man who sometimes gives too much, a man who sometimes stays too long because he remembers why he fell in love in the first place. A man who believes people can change, a man who would rather forgive than destroy. And perhaps that is his greatest strength. But it can also be the place where he becomes vulnerable. Because when someone is kind, people sometimes mistake kindness for weakness. When someone is patient, people sometimes assume he will tolerate anything. When someone forgives, people sometimes believe they can hurt him endlessly and still be welcomed back. Please don't make that mistake with my son. His patience is not permission. His forgiveness is not an invitation to repeat the same wound. His silence does not mean he feels nothing. And his ability to walk away peacefully does not mean he was never deeply hurt. If you love him, protect the quiet parts of him. Protect the part that still believes people mean what they say. Protect the part that remembers small gestures. Protect the part that gives second chances. Protect the part that still believes that two people can sit across from each other after an argument and choose understanding instead of pride. I don't want you to love my son because he is strong. I want you to love him when he is not. I want you to be there when the world has exhausted him. I want you to notice when his smile is forced. I want you to ask him how he really feels, and then stay long enough to hear the answer. I want you to understand that sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who quietly says, "I am hurting." And if he ever tells you that he is afraid of losing you, don't use that fear against him. Hold his hand. If he ever tells you that something you did hurt him, don't immediately defend yourself. Listen. If he makes a mistake, tell him, but don't punish him with silence when conversation could heal the distance. And if you ever stop loving him, please be brave enough to tell him honestly. Do not keep him beside you simply because you are afraid of being alone. Do not give him promises you know you cannot keep. Do not make him spend months questioning what changed. My son deserves the truth, even when the truth hurts. Because I have watched him survive lies, and I have watched how much longer they take to heal. There was another night I remember clearly. He was older then. He had already experienced enough life to understand that love could be beautiful and painful in the same breath. We were sitting outside. The night was cool, and neither of us felt like going inside. He looked toward the sky and said, "Mum, do you think people can love each other and still hurt each other?" I thought about the question. Then I said, "Yes." He looked at me. "But I don't think love should be an excuse for hurting someone." He nodded slowly. I continued, "Love doesn't mean you never hurt each other. It means you care enough to repair what you break." He was silent. Then he said, "What if you keep breaking the same thing?" I looked at my son, and I knew he wasn't asking about a hypothetical relationship. He was asking about his own heart. So I said, "Then eventually, loving someone may mean loving them enough to let them go." His eyes lowered. That was one of the hardest lessons I ever watched him learn. Sometimes love is staying. Sometimes love is fighting. Sometimes love is forgiving. But sometimes love is stepping away before two people destroy everything beautiful that once existed between them. I want my son to have the kind of love that does not make him beg for basic tenderness. I want him to have someone who chooses him on ordinary days, not only during romantic moments. Someone who understands that a lasting relationship is built in kitchens, quiet rooms, long drives, difficult conversations, tired mornings, apologies, patience, and thousands of tiny decisions to care. I don't want a woman who simply says she loves my son. I want a woman whose actions make him feel safe enough to believe it. And I want him to offer her the same. Because I know my son is not innocent in every heartbreak. He has made mistakes too. He has misunderstood. He has become quiet when he should have spoken. He has probably held on to things longer than he should. He has tried to solve problems alone when he should have asked for help. He has loved people with the hope that love alone could fix everything. But growing older has taught him something. Love is not about finding someone without flaws. It is about finding someone who is willing to face those flaws honestly. I have watched my son grow. Not just older, deeper. The boy who once thought every problem had a simple answer became a man who understood that some questions have to be lived before they can be answered. Heartbreak taught him patience. Loss taught him gratitude. Loneliness taught him the value of genuine companionship, and love taught him that vulnerability is not weakness. I am proud of the man he became. Not because of what he has achieved, not because of what people may see when they look at him. I am proud because after being hurt, he did not become cruel. That is something I will always cherish. He could have decided that love was foolish. He could have decided that trust was dangerous. He could have built walls so high that nobody could ever reach him again. Instead, he chose to remain kind. He chose to remain gentle. He chose to believe that one person's inability to love him properly should not define love itself. That takes courage. And perhaps that is why my plea is so simple. Please don't break my son's heart again. If you are uncertain, tell him. If you are afraid, tell him. If you need space, tell him. If you love him, show him. If you are angry, speak instead of punishing. If you make a mistake, apologize. And if he makes one, give him the chance to learn. Don't turn love into a battlefield where winning means making the other person hurt more. Choose peace. Choose honesty. Choose patience. Choose the kind of love that still exists when the excitement fades and real life begins. Because one day, the beautiful moments will become memories. The first meeting will become a story. The first kiss will become something you remember. The photographs will become older. The celebrations will pass. And what will remain is how you treated each other when nobody was watching. That is what matters. I have spent enough years watching my son walk through life to know that he does not need someone who makes his world louder. He needs someone who makes his heart quieter. Someone beside whom he does not have to perform. Someone with whom he can sit in silence without wondering whether the silence means something is wrong. Someone who can look at his tired face and say, "Come here. You don't have to carry everything tonight." I want that for him. But I also want it for her, because love should not be a place where one person sacrifices everything while the other simply receives. My son deserves a partner, not a rescuer, not someone he has to impress, not someone he has to chase endlessly. A partner. Someone who walks beside him, and I hope he learns to be that person for her too. Because my role as his mother is not to tell him that he is always right. My role is to remind him to be good, even when he is hurt. To be honest, even when honesty is uncomfortable. To apologize when he is wrong. To leave when staying becomes destructive. To forgive without forgetting the lesson. And most importantly, to never confuse suffering with love. I have told him that many times. I told him when he was young. I told him when he was older. And I would tell him again today. My son, you do not have to suffer to prove that you love someone. Real love should challenge you, yes. It should require patience. It should require sacrifice. But it should never require you to abandon yourself. And if the woman he loves is listening to me now, I hope she understands that I am not standing between them. I am standing behind my son. There is a difference. I do not want to control his choices. I do not want to choose his future. I simply want him to remember that his heart matters too. A mother spends years teaching her child how to walk. Then one day, she realizes she has to let him walk towards someone else. That is one of the strangest things about motherhood. You raise a child to become independent, and then you must accept that his greatest happiness may be found in a life you cannot control. I have accepted that. If my son's happiness is with her, I will never ask him to choose between us. I will simply ask her to treat him with the same care I tried to teach him to offer others. And if someday they build a life together, I hope they remember that love is not proven only in grand gestures. It is proven in the little moments. A hand reaching across the bed, a cup of coffee made without being asked, a text saying, "Did you get home safely?" A quiet apology, a laugh after an argument. a hand held during difficult news, a decision to stay kind when it would be easier to become bitter. Those are the moments that build a life. And if one day my son comes home and tells me, "Mum, I finally found peace," I will not ask what she looks like. I will not ask how successful she is. I will not ask what she can give him. I will simply look at his face, because I will know. A mother's heart recognizes peace in her son's eyes. And if I see that peace, I will thank the woman who helped him find it. But if I ever see that old sadness return, the sadness of a man who is constantly questioning whether he is enough, I will hug him. I will remind him of the little boy who rescued a wounded bird because he couldn't bear to leave it alone. I will remind him that his tenderness was never something to be ashamed of. I will remind him that his ability to love deeply is not a flaw. And I will tell him, once again, that he should never have to earn the right to be treated with kindness. Perhaps that is what I want most for my son. Not a perfect love story, a real one. A love story where two imperfect people choose each other honestly, where they can disagree without destroying each other, where they can forgive without keeping score, where they can grow without growing apart, where neither person has to become smaller so the other can feel bigger, where love is not a cage, where trust is not demanded but earned, where tenderness is not used as a weapon, where leaving is not threatened during every argument, where both people understand that hearts are not toys, they are homes. And when someone gives you the key to theirs, you should enter gently. So, if you ever hold my son's heart again, please hold it carefully. Not because he is my son, not because I am asking you to, but because every human heart deserves that kind of care. And if you love him, then you already know how precious that heart can be. Please don't make him wonder whether he is lovable. Please don't make him compete for affection. Please don't make him question every memory. Please don't make him apologize for having feelings. And please don't mistake his gentleness for an endless supply of second chances. Love him enough to be honest. Love him enough to listen. Love him enough to grow. Love him enough to let him be human. And if someday the road becomes difficult, remember why you started walking it together. Remember the first moment you saw something beautiful in him. Remember the laughter. Remember the quiet moments. Remember the things he told you when he trusted you. Remember the version of him that opened his heart without knowing whether you would protect it. Because love becomes strongest when we remember that the person standing before us is not an enemy. He is someone who once trusted us. And I hope my son remembers the same. I hope he never allows heartbreak to turn him into someone he does not recognize. I hope he continues to believe in kindness. I hope he continues to believe in forgiveness. I hope he continues to believe that somewhere in this enormous world, there is a love that will not ask him to become someone else. And when that love comes, or if it is already standing beside him, I hope he recognizes it. I hope he doesn't mistake peace for boredom because he has become accustomed to chaos. I hope he doesn't mistake consistency for a lack of passion because he has known uncertainty. I